Welcome to Conversations and Coffee, where we have conversations that are authentic, lighthearted, and purposeful. Our conversations will be engaging. You will hear from industry experts that will have you saying, "Whoa, wow, I didn't know that." Join us, because it's all about you, your loved ones, and anyone who want to stay informed and, of course, living your best life.
And it's that fine line, but I do think this journey really, and that's why I wrote the book. My goal for writing this book was to give tools to normalize, validate, empathize, and equip you on how to get through this journey, to make this journey as meaningful, compassionate, loving, kind, caring, supportive as possible for yourself, as well as with your loved one.
Yes. Because so many caregivers, I can tell you, they, family caregivers, professional caregivers, they feel so lost and they don't know where to go. So when I came across you and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a person who is really into the caregiver and how to help them cope and having your support groups and all of those things. I thought that was just the most rewarding thing that could happen for a caregiver. So as I, look at your book and in looking at it, I think it was part 2, is where you start to say, as a caregiver in surviving, pace yourself.
Yeah.
It's called Surviving the Caregiver Journey, Pace Yourself. Can you tell me, or can you break it down for our eavesdroppers, what pace means? Because I think that's so important.
Yes, and it's kind of metaphorical, right? Because basically, I wrote this book because what I see a lot of, as you could hear, overwhelmed, I'm drowning, and how to pace yourself. In other words, how to conserve your energy. This is a can be a long journey. Yes. And if you go right out of the gate exhausted and depleting your energy, it's going to be at the expense of the caregiver's own physical, mental, and emotional well-being, which is what I see, right? So I wanted to offer a way to pace yourself down this journey, conserve your energy, so it's not at the expense of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So the P stands for give yourself permission to trial and error. I'm sorry to say there's no perfect roadmap. There's no perfect caregiver. And a lot of figuring out what works is actually learning from what doesn't work. And give yourself permission to make mistakes. Mistakes are opportunity to learn from, not to beat yourself up, not to judge yourself, not to criticize yourself, but what can we learn to figure out what will work? Not always do we figure it out right off the bat. So I want caregivers to give themselves permission to trial and error. That if it doesn't work out, don't give up. We'll figure it out. I can provide a lot of strategies. And when they work beautifully, oh my God, it's great. But I'm going to be totally honest. They're going to give me feedback sometimes and say, it didn't work and this is what happened. But that clues me into, this is what we want to try differently. This is what we want to do differently. So then the A stands for acknowledge their reality. Pretty much what we just talked about. We have to meet them where they're at. So what does that mean? We have to join their altered reality, their new version of reality. And I walk you through exactly how to do that, ways to do that. There's tons and tons and tons of tips and strategies on how to do that. But I also do a real deep dive in how dementia is going to change your loved one and how to deal with those changes, because their changes are going to affect you, and then I equip you on how to deal with those changes. So A stands for acknowledge the reality, but what I'm really addressing there is, again, how dementia changes your loved one, how that's going to affect you, and then strategies and techniques on how to deal with those changes. Then C stands for compassionate care. How to provide compassionate care to your loved one, how to communicate compassionately. And then this is where I spent a lot of time talking to the caregiver and how to be compassionate towards yourself, how to deal with those different feelings and emotions that come up, and explain why they come up. And this section is about you and taking care of you and how to be supportive and more compassionate with what you're going through. And I normalize those feelings. These feelings are to be expected. Now, how do we use those feelings to empower you to do things differently to make life better for you and your loved one? And then the E stands for empowering yourself. And here is where I talk a lot about ways to empower yourself. But more importantly, this is an educational piece too, because I talk about identifying your triggers, your loved one's triggers. But this is also where I line up the ducks about what's coming down the pike. This is where I talk about establishing an emergency plan, how to hire a home care agency. I provide the questions to ask, what the answers should be, when to place your loved one, and the questions to ask the care communities. And this is also where I talk about hospice, the questions to ask these hospice agencies and what the answers should be. So I really take you from beginning all the way to down this journey in terms of helping you line up your ducks, in terms of what to expect, questions to ask, and the answers you should be hearing.
When I was going through this, I was looking at that. It is very, very involved in depth with information that people would need to know in order to help them. And I love the way you put it, the PACE, P-A-C-E, just pacing yourself, but each one of those letters means something in the process.
Right, exactly. And that's it, right? You get a diagnosis, my loved one has dementia, and now what do I do? Mm-hmm. So, I've had clients obviously who read the book, and of course, this book could not have been written without the trust that the families have invested in me. Mm-hmm. And this book is about them and providing more people with this knowledge. So I tell people, if you're not able to work with me privately one-on-one, the next best thing is the book is here for you to walk you through this journey and equip you, and you've got the tools. But again, it's the whole 6-point process, right? The validating, the empathizing, and how to do that for your loved one. Yes. But it takes you all the way through this journey. And then the back end, the very end, the 4 Ds of dementia care. Yes. I talk about the 4 Ds of dementia care, right? Yes. Detach, diffuse, distract, and document. Mm-hmm. And I talk about the 11 most challenging behaviors and how to implement the 4 Ds of dementia care. So I really tried to provide the most comprehensive tool to give people to help them. I want them to feel I'm right by their side, walking them through this journey all of the way. They're no longer alone. They have somebody right by their side, walking this journey through with them, holding on to them and helping them get through it.
Yes, I love that. When you say it's like you're right by their side. Definitely, this book is very comprehensive. And, just from me, just looking at it, and like I told you before, I don't read a book from the cover to the end. I jump around, especially when it's an educational or informative type of book. And I'm telling you, it's good. It really is. And this would be a great tool for people who are looking for help. Yeah. So as I think about looking for help, and as we continue this conversation, you're on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. Yes. The audience and our eavesdroppers are all over the place. So if they are wanting to get help from you just because they love, the conversation today and they want more information about that, How can they do that?
Yes. So here's the beauty of COVID's been rough, but the one blessing out of COVID is I can now service people in any part of the state, any part of the world, in any state, East Coast, Central Coast, West Coast, Australia, Canada, which is lovely. So they could go to my website, www.TamiAnastasia.com, and I can do Zoom. We can do it by phone. Of course, local people, we can do it in person, 6 feet apart and wearing a mask outdoors. But there's several ways that I can do this. My support groups right now are all via online. We haven't gone in person yet. And I do several support groups. Mm-hmm. So I think the best way to contact me is to go to my website. Again, www.Tami, T-A-M-I, Anastasia, ANASTASIA.com. Or you could just type in, my name. Mm-hmm. And again, the information, my website's on the back of my book, or you could always call me, and that phone number is also on the website as well.
All right. Okay. You're speaking of your website again, it's very useful. You have many articles on there and posted about different things, and you have your support groups, like you just said. Your support groups are on there, and how they can kind of get in touch with you. So that is beautiful, just for people that may be beginning the journey. Maybe they're already in the journey.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what's nice about the book, is that no matter where you are on this journey, it's still not too late to get the book, because I'm walking you down that path anyway. And you might be at the point like, oh my God, I got to think about, hiring home care, or what do we need to start hospice, or I got to place my loved one. That information's in the book. So not to put you on the spot, but I am. Was there anything that stood out to you that had an impact that you read that has made a difference in terms of something new or different that you learned because you read the book? In other words, has it impacted you in any way?
Yes. I want to say yes, all the way. And the reason I say that is when I was thinking of the questions that I was going to ask you and going through your book, what has made a big impact for me is what I asked you earlier, PACE, P-A-C-E, because what happens with our caregivers, and like I say, I deal with professional caregivers, and not just that, my grandmother, she had dementia as well. So then it became part of the family, a family dynamic as well. But just to know that you can pace yourself through the process. Yeah. And the way you described it in the book, it made it just so simple. It was very simplistic for just, I guess, what we call lay terms, for people to truly understand how to go through this process. Because I tell you, this is hard. It is hard for the caregiver. It's hard for the family. It takes a toll on everyone. So I can truly say, this book is a tool, and it has made an impact on me as I continue to educate my professional caregivers on how to deal with this on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I have actually gotten orders for books to give to, I'm assuming you have a home care agency?
Yes, and home care company.
Right? So my book is being used as a training tool to help the professional caregiver know how to do what we're asking the family caregivers to do, right? And thank you for what you do. You've got a home care agency, and you're a gift, because whatever you could provide to help these families is just worth its weight in gold. And it's a big journey, a big nut to crack to manage these caregivers. So I want to commend you and thank you for everything that you do and provide for these families as well.
Yes, I am. I'm an educator. I trade, a conversationalist by heart. And I want to say that I'm all about education.
Yeah.
I may be a co-girl boss of an in-home care company, but I'm an educator. And if it's something that I don't know, or I see that our professional caregivers are struggling with something, I'm going to find something that's going to help me to educate them in order to continue to grow as a caregiver, because it's not just a job. You got to have the heart to do this. Even as a family caregiver, you have to have a heart. This is something that is not something that you're just doing day by day and don't care about. You have to have the heart to do it. Definitely.
Yeah. And, every family caregiver, it starts off with this journey, right? With, such wonderful, great intentions. And I think the other thing before we sign off, I really, really want to say is that this journey is very difficult to do alone. Mm-hmm. And you do need support. And the sooner you allow yourself, and let's go back to the PACE, right? The P, permission to ask for help. And I talk about this in the book as well. 3 things caregivers need to do, and they got to remind themselves, right? They're as important as the person they're taking care of. Very difficult to take a time out for yourself, but it's super important. But also equally as important is that the sooner you can say to yourself, I don't like to do this, I don't want to do this, I can't do this, we get resources to do it for you, the better this journey will be. So I want to give every family caregiver permission right now, ask for help. Yes. It is incredibly difficult, incredibly taxing if you try to do this by yourself. And so the more support, the better. And again, in the book, I talk about how to create that support network, which ultimately is really a care plan that we're putting in place, or some people refer to it as a survival guide. Mm. But I don't want to end this without reminding the family caregiver, support, as much support as you need. Ask for support. Reach out for support. Try to do it before you have a health issue or before, your loved one's health deteriorates to the point you're so exhausted. We want to try to intercept that before it gets to that point. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad that we didn't end yet, because I wanted to be sure to say it's super, super, super important to get as much support as possible. And you offer support. You're a professional resource that offers valuable, incredible support for these family caregivers.
Yes. And I want to say this, as I was doing my research, and I noticed that so many caregivers are afraid. They're afraid to discuss their loved one's struggles. So what we decided that we were going to do is we were going to send out a poll, send some questions out, and ask them to just kind of tell the story, but not really say who they are. We don't know who they are. It's just someone out in the world wanting to know an answer, or wanting to get some type of answer. So I have some questions here.
Oh boy. Okay. Let's give it a try.
My eavesdroppers.
Okay.
And this one is from Stacy. She says, my mom is 75 years old and has been suffering with dementia for the past 4 years. It's been a hard journey for all of us, especially now that we believe she also suffers from psychosis. If psychosis was undiagnosed for a long time and dementia was diagnosed, can we say that they are one in the same?
What I can say, if we do have psychosis, it is definitely going to elevate and come to the surface more when somebody has dementia. It goes back to what I said earlier, right? Dementia tends to elevate or heighten, like they may relive past experiences. So if we have a psychosis undiagnosed and now we have dementia, it is very likely that that dementia has elevated that psychosis. And here again, we got to go back to the doctor and again, deliver what the observations are, what makes you think they have a psychosis, an underlying psychosis that was never treated, and bring that to the doctor's attention, because that's important information to have. So I can't say they're one and the same. They're separate, in my opinion, but dementia, because the brain cells are deteriorating, that is going to exhibit itself and elevate itself a lot more, because when we have a healthy brain, we can repress things, we can compartmentalize things. When we get dementia, we can't do that anymore. So it tends to surface and come up and be elevated. So I think super important that we talk to the doctor about that.
Okay, great. Meredith, she asked this question. My husband is 63 years old. I've been reading and researching signs of dementia, and I think my husband has it, but has not been diagnosed. I have taken him many times to the doctor, but every time he gets there, he presents well.
Yeah.
No signs, has normal conversation.
Yep.
Can answer questions, ask about a doctor, etc., etc. It's like playing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yep.
I've spoken to the doctor on my own to let the doctor know what I've observed. I've even given the doctor my journal of my episodes, of the many episodes he's had, but no one is believing me. They only see what my husband presents to them, and they have not seen the true person. I'm so tired, and I believe my journey is just beginning. What steps can I take to make sure what I am saying is believed, or do I let my husband crash and burn on his own?
No. We find new doctors who are going to listen to you. That documentation is invaluable. And I highly, and I encourage that, as you know, in my book, documentation, write down the observations. I promise you there will be somebody who will listen. They'll take what you have to say, and they will thank you upside down and backwards, because we love documentation, and that's a gift. So if we're presenting a gift and information and it's not being heard, it's time to find a doctor who is going to listen. And I guarantee they're out there. We just may have to go to more than one or two. And maybe we're not going to the right doctor, right? Maybe we need to see a neuropsychologist or a neurologist or or we could see a neuropsychologist, or even better, a geriatrician who is an MD who specializes in dealing with older people. Now I know he's only 63, which would mean if he has dementia, we're talking about early onset. That's important to know, especially if he has dementia and it's early onset. We want to jump on it now. You are providing valuable information, and now we need to present it and give it to people who are going to listen and do something about it. Yeah. When a doctor dismisses you, time to move on.
Okay.
Yeah, do not go back to the same doctor that doesn't want to see it, isn't seeing it, for whatever reason. That's okay. We need to move on and find the doctor that's going to listen, read, and be willing to test.
Yes. Thank you. Wow.
Yep.
We have about two more.
Okay.
I had a lot of them, but I had to narrow it down. Like, oh my God.
That's okay.
We have Duke. He says, I have a friend whose wife has been diagnosed with dementia for years. I have seen my friend's mood and health deteriorate because of the stress he is under. How can I support my friend through the process?
Boy, that is a loaded question, because the caregiver has a hard time asking for help. And as I mentioned earlier, the more support, the better. The earlier, the better. So here's what I will say. Be a sincere friend. Talk about your concerns because you love your friend. Be compassionate, be respectful, and talk about your fears and concerns for that friend. Do not judge, do not criticize, because these caregivers, they're worn out, and we need people to be supportive. And when you talk from a place of love and compassion and care and support, we deliver the message differently. If we're going with judgment and criticism, it comes off as being harsh and opinionated, and you'll alienate them. So you can say, you're my friend, I love you, I care about you, my fear for you is this, my concerns for you are this. I just need to express how much I worry about you. And it's a very loving, supportive statement versus, again, being judgmental and critical. We don't want to do that. The family caregivers will often share with me they feel isolated and alone because people go away, and friends don't know how to interact with them anymore. Family members don't want to deal with it. And love and compassion and support, in my opinion, whether the caregiver can hear it or not, when you speak from your heart, you're delivering a message of love, and that's all we can do, is express our concerns, express our care, but try not to do it in a judgmental, critical way.
Yeah.
You're speaking from your heart. I love you. I care for you. I worry about you. I just had this conversation with a daughter who's very concerned about her sister. And we talked at length on how to express your concerns for her from a very loving, kind, compassionate place.
Yes, definitely. Wow. This is a good one. Okay.
Oh, before you go on, the other thing when you do that, Joy, that just popped in my head, is you could also say these are the things that I've observed, but not from a judgmental or critical place. More again from a loving. I noticed, when we're on the phone, I noticed, that you seem to be more irritable or impatient, and I just worry about you. Again, when we deliver the message, be very kind and respectful. Sorry, I had that second thought.
Yes, that was good, because, so many people, when they hear your advice for them, sometimes they take it to heart and don't want to talk to you anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want you to feel guilty about how you presented it either, right? Yeah. I don't want you to walk away and say, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Or no, when it's loving, caring, supportive, compassionate, we're just being authentic and real with that person. But again, being very cautious in how we deliver the information.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Great. So Renee, she says, my husband is irritated all the time. I believe his dementia has gotten worse. He is leaving our home, staying on the streets, in parking lots, and sometimes my neighbors are saying they have seen my husband befriending people who might be taking advantage of him. I can't do it anymore. He won't listen to me because his memory is in and out. I want to put him in a facility that can help him get the care he needs, but it seems as if there are none out there for this. Are there facilities that take people with dementia or psych issues?
So that's got a lot of different components to it. So let me break it down. Usually when we see what you described, that behavior is called wandering.
Yes.
When
I read that in the book.
Yeah. That's one of the 11 challenges. So what that indicates to me often is that their brain isn't stimulated enough. And when the brain gets bored, B-O-R-E-D, or boredom, the brain does several things. It may ruminate on stories, and that's when you get the repetitive questions, or we see a lot of pacing, or we see a lot of wandering, right? Because they don't know what to do with themselves. And people with dementia still need to have a sense of purpose. They have to have a sense of value. They need to feel a sense of belonging. And what these care communities can do is they can provide the stimulation that people with dementia need. And they can structure their day. The other thing about the P in the book was about providing structure. And the structure gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them a sense of normalcy. It gives them a sense of security and stability. And so these are just symptoms that are indicating certain needs are not being met, where if we put them in the care community, they could provide that extra stimulation he needs, because that's usually a red flag, right? And they're used to dealing with that. So, and that's what they're there for. So I think a care community, and then the other thing about a care community is when we see that kind of pacing too, it's interesting, people with dementia do a lot of pacing. And what we want to do there is try to find a community where there's an enclosed walking area, because they need that space to be able to exert that energy, which I believe is probably some internal anxiety or fear. And so they have this way of releasing those feelings. And so a care community would be a really good thing. The more you try to reason with your loved one, explain, correct, the more you're going to alienate them. They will not listen, because we need to meet them where they're at. It's an expression of a need. And what are those needs? And here again in the book, I have a list of many, many, many needs that people with dementia have. And so that wandering, again, is a symptom that's a red flag. Oh, we might need to be stimulating him cognitively much more.
Okay.
And make sure the neighbors and everybody's aware that he has that he's got dementia, because they're going to be your eyes and ears, because they're a huge safety risk, and you want to be aware of that. So actually putting him in a care community is going to make it much safer for him and easier on you as well.
Okay. We have one more. Just one more. I think this podcast probably will be a 2-part podcast, because we just got so much information, so many things that I just wanted to ask, and so many people wanting to know. And so I hope you don't mind, but one more.
I'm good. As long as you're good, I'm good.
Okay. So professional. This is from a professional caregiver. Her name is Tamika. She says, I have taken a class years back on dementia. I recognize the signs of the disease. I am currently taking care of a client that is showing all the signs of dementia that I've learned. I've been with this client for over 8 months. It's getting harder to take care of this client because the family is still in denial. Yeah. I've reported my observations to my company, and they have shared this information with the family as well. But the family has ignored what we are saying, and they have made excuses in the situation. The behaviors are becoming worse, especially when my client is sundowning when I'm there, and even when I'm not. I think I'm going to ask to leave this case. What can I do as a professional caregiver when the family is not listening to get the help the client needs?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a very valid situation. So let's sort of look at the choices we have. What I might do is pull out, I would probably try an educational an educational way of addressing it, I would probably print out some information that talks about the signs and symptoms of dementia and kind of let the family look at it and say, do you see any of these signs or symptoms? So maybe we approach it from an educational standpoint. I will say this, if it's going to become a liability for the professional caregiver or the professional company, and you guys are trying to implement things that are in their best interest, and again, is a safety issue, you do have to reevaluate. Are we able to provide the necessary care at this point? And if the family cannot get on board, does not want to get on board, I would probably take also another approach. Now, this is usually when I'm called in to deal with families, because I need to know why. Denial always serves a purpose. So I need to know what purpose that denial is serving. So I would spend a lot of time talking with the family caregiver, the family, and get their perspective, because in my book, I talk about how to deal with families when, especially when the caregiver spouse is in denial and the adult child's like, Mom, Dad has a problem. So in that, all of those components that I talk about are applicable to anybody who's in denial. But denial serves a purpose, and my job would be to figure out the purpose denial serves, because that's going to give me some insight as to how do I approach this now. So you guys aren't maybe in that position where you feel comfortable doing that, but you might want to talk about what would this look like if their parent did have dementia, and how scary that might be, and what would that look like, and what would make you think they have dementia? Like, what behaviors are we waiting for to confirm that they have dementia? In other words, spend more time pulling information out of them about why they feel the way they do, because that is what's going to clue us into what we might need to say or do differently. Does that make sense?
Yes,
yep.
It does.
Like, draw them out. Like, I want to go I call it fishing. I want to go fishing for information now. I know this family is in denial for a reason. I want to draw as much information out and see where they are. And that will help me to determine what avenue now do I take to try to break that resistance down, but very subtly.
Yes. And that is one reason that we decided to bring on Conversations in Coffee, because then the family can take a look at this and be able to say, okay, I do understand, or look on websites and get valuable articles that they can read and be more aware of what's happening. I know that, again, like I told you before, I'm all about education, been an educator for my adult life after graduating from college. And I can truly say that when we have these issues in our own company, where families, where we survey our families and ask them, okay, what are these struggles or whatever, we put on seminars, we put on events in order to be able to get the families out to hear this information, because the more they know, the more they're able to process it, and the more they're able to help with this.
And that being said, I do a lot of webinars, and if they go to my website, it's called Spousal Resistance, but everything that I discuss pertaining to the caregiver spouse who's in denial, all is applicable to anybody who's in denial. So it's just good information to have. But I will always say this, that I call it resistance or denial. It gets labeled as denial, but what it really is resistance. The resistance always serves a purpose. It's protecting them from something. They're emotionally not ready to deal with it, and that's what we've got to go fishing for. What is it protecting them from? Because as long as that resistance is there, we have to embrace the resistance, I call it. We have to align with it so I can understand it, will help me know how to break it down.
Yes. So
so true.
Okay.
So spend maybe a little more time picking their brain to understand their perspective so that now we have a much better understanding as to where they're coming from. And then how can we now subtly meet them where they're at.
Wow. We've had a powerful conversation today. We've had powerful questions asked by our eavesdroppers, and you've given some great answers to that. And we have come to the end of our conversation, but I love to ask all of my guests the same summation questions to have a little fun.
Okay.
So your answers will probably be more personal than professional.
Okay.
But what I want you to do is try to think of the first word that pops into your mind.
Okay.
And we are going to do what I call a round of 10-second thoughts to sum up our conversation.
Okay. This might be the hardest thing of this whole conversation, right?
Okay, here we go.
All right, go ahead. I'm ready.
Today, you are
grateful to be a guest on your show.
Yay!
Thank you so much for having me.
Our conversation was
fun, stimulating, and I hope informative.
Yes.
That was more than one word.
Coffee is to you
soothing.
Yes, it is. You love or I love.
I love what I do.
Okay. When you laugh, when I laugh about.
When I laugh hard.
Me too. Oh my gosh.
I laugh hard.
I am really
a sensitive person. I am really a sensitive person.
And caring.
And caring. Very, very caring.
My personality is
reassuring and calming.
Okay. I love what I do because
I can help people.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tammy, for being a part of Conversations and Coffee. It was an eye-opening experience, and what I hope for is that our eavesdroppers today have learned a lot through your knowledge. If we want to keep in touch with you, join some of your groups or your workshops. Let us know how to do that.
Again, go to my website and you can, I've got to subscribe. You can subscribe to my newsletters, and I have a YouTube channel. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So those are two ways. And again, website's probably the best way to get in more information. And
I will have all of that information for our eavesdroppers right down at the bottom in the comment section of this channel of our podcast, and so they'll be able to connect with you. So thank you so much.
Great. Joy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. You're so welcome, Tammy. And I truly, truly feel that our eavesdroppers, our audience today, will truly get some insightful information and be able to move forward in their journey with the person that they love. Yeah.
I hope so. I really hope so.